up, everybody? This is Nick, and you're joining us once again for a Micro Mini. No, it is not a Micro Mini. What am I doing, sir? I don't know. As always, I'm joined by my friend and co-host.
This is Eric.
Eric, what is this thing we're doing?
We're doing a PUC podcast, my friend.
The old PUC podcast. The one that started it all. The one that we always go to get our fans excited.
We call it the flagship of the channel.
Well, it is the flagship of the channel because, Eric, what does PUC stand for?
Pull up a chair.
You know what? And that's what we invite you to do right now. Pull up that chair that you are using to celebrate the year of the chair, 2019, the year of our Lord. And Eric,
yeah.
Today we have we're going to go a little nostalgia. You made a reference in the last PUC podcast that at the time it did register with me, but as I went back and I listened to our podcast today, I thought to myself, what a great opportunity. And I was thinking, somewhere out there, beneath this pale moonlight, someone is thinking of the same thing as I am. And Eric, do you know what we're going to talk about today?
Well, I do in fact know what we're talking about today.
What?
It's that not as if we spent the last good half hour or more discussing it off, Mike.
Oh, and
we're
doing research like we always do.
We're obviously talking about Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Brooklyn
Nine-Nine, the classic sitcom of the 80s that, they go, Papa?
Fievel?
Papa?
Fievel!
And that, of course, brought us to a discussion tonight about An American Tail.
Tail spelled T-A-I-L instead of T-A-L-E, which I'd never had realized that spelling of tail, I mean, it's wrong, but it's like a tail of a mouse, obviously.
Right. Is it wrong?
It's wrong.
You're not going to let it go, are you?
No, it's wrong. It's fine. It's because it's thematic. It's fine. It's grammatically wrong because America, I guess the closest thing America has to a tail would be Florida?
Yes. So, yeah, but it's... Is that what they call it? I thought it was a boot. No, the boot... No, what's the boot? The boot is...
Isn't it a sideways...
What are we talking about?
A boot. So, yeah, I never realized that until we were looking at it. So I was like, typed it in. I'm like, I spelled that wrong?
No, I will say, I tried to look it up a couple of times today, and I came up with completely wrong because I too was spelling it T-A-L-E.
Yes, as a story you tell. It's a tale.
It's a tale as old as time.
That's right. So we're talking about An American Tail, a fantastic animated film from what year? 1980s.
1986.
1986, about a scrappy young mouse who, the whole family's coming from Russia to America.
Yes.
And he gets separated.
He does. It is essentially, it is what Home Alone is based off of.
I can see that.
I don't think that's true.
It is. No, that is now origin lore for the show.
Yeah, it goes down as origin
though,
lore for Home Alone.
Home Alone came out in 1989.
Did it?
What year did Home Alone
come out? I'll look that up. I want to say it was
so,
longer after that. I want to say 90s.
Is it 91, 92? It's early 90s if it's 90s. I thought. I'm trying to think how old Macaulay Culkin is.
He's about 70 now. 1990.
90. Okay.
So you were right. I mean, you
close.
were right around the same time.
That's good enough. So we're going to be talking about An American Tail. I had not thought about this movie too much until the Pontiac Bandit himself and Jake Peralta off of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. They kind of do a skit in the show about it, just basically what Nick and I did, and it brought back fond memories, and it stuck with me. I think it was from a couple seasons ago.
Actually, I have fond memories of this show because for some reason in Nick's brain, the song that went with this movie, Somewhere Out There, it every once in a while when I hear somebody say something like it's out there or something like that, my brain will go to it's somewhere out there beneath the pale moonlight. It'll go to that song.
Which is, what is it? That's kind of the anchor song for the whole movie.
It is. And like we looked up earlier, what position did it debut at, or what position did it get up to?
It peaked at, on the American Billboard 100 USA, it peaked at number 2.
Yes.
Number 2. A song from an animated series peaked at number 2. What did the Frozen song peak at, I wonder?
I have no idea.
What is the name of that song? That's how memorable it is to me. Frozen wiki. So I'll look it up real quick. But
Let It Go.
Let It Go. I wonder what it peaked at.
I have no idea, but not near as catchy in my opinion as this song. When you have two mice singing this, his sister and himself, it is magical because they are talking about the need to be with each other. And I don't know, for some reason it was just catchy to me as a kid. And I actually remember seeing the video on VH1 for this song.
Oh, really?
And the reason I remember it is because while the two were the man and the woman, who did we say was the woman that it was written for?
Linda Ronstadt.
Linda Ronstadt, and she did. I'll have to get the name of that. To sing over the end credits with James Ingram, but they did a duet on this song, and they intermixed scenes from the movie.
Oh, really?
And I don't know. I don't think I had seen the movie up until seen the movie yet. So I was looking at scenes from this movie I was getting extra scenes that weren't in the trailers.
Oh, you were like, okay.
I was getting it from this movie or this music video.
Okay. Well, so for reference, Frozen, Let It Go, it peaked at number 38 on the Billboard Hot 100, where this song got to number 2.
That's right. In Your Face, Frozen?
In Your Face.
You'll never be somewhere out
Demi
there.
Lovato.
Yeah. I mean, you'll never be somewhere out there beneath the pale moonlight.
That's right, you won't.
You got to let it go, people.
Let it go.
So, I mean, it was a very popular song. It says it was composed, and it also by Barry Mann with lyrics by Cynthia Weil, won a Grammy Award, and became one of the most popular songs from an animated feature since the 1950s.
I wonder what the 1950s one was.
I have no idea. That'll be
I know what it was.
Probably something else for another podcast, or as I called it last week, a pudcast. But I had a few missteps last week.
Yeah, you listened to. Let's see. Well, I was trying to think real quick. I think it was the last hit was from Pinocchio in Outer Space.
Well, yes.
The classic movie. From
1976.
1976?
Well, no, wait, that wouldn't have been that long.
1965.
1965. Sorry.
If y'all haven't seen Pinocchio in Outer Space, you know nothing about film.
Well, you can watch all 15 parts of it on YouTube.
You sure can.
In about 8-minute increments from what at least part 1 was. I'm assuming it keeps that progression going. But if you want to watch that, it looks stellar. We watched a trailer for it earlier.
Yes. What was that thing called that he was his companion? A Twirtle?
Yeah, it was Nerdle the Twirtle.
Nerdle the Twirtle. Okay.
And if anybody's listening can tell us what that is, because we may go back and actually watch this thing and talk about it at some point. Even though it's not really a 1980s one, it was so intriguing. It definitely might have some potential in the future. But Nerdle the Twirtle was coming off as more of a wise guy.
He was more like, Pinocchio, you're an idiot.
Oh yeah,
I like that.
I mean, he did not give Pinocchio, who's still a child, didn't give him any kind of room to. He was basically telling him you're an idiot.
Yeah,
like Eric said, his translation is correct here.
Just a quick what happens? Pinocchio becomes such a bad child again. He gets turned back into wood.
Yes,
and that's where it kicks off from. But let's get back to our Fievel series here.
But Eric, why do you bring up Pinocchio in outer space?
I don't remember how we got on Pinocchio in outer space. In our pre-conversation.
Because Pinocchio in outer space for Universal, the company that releases the movies.
Yeah.
Universal, it was only the second
animated
feature to be put out by them. The other one was the Snow Queen by Universal. I looked that up a second ago. But then it wasn't until 1986. That's how long it was between the release of their last animated feature to this one.
But this one being Fievel American
Tale. It was that long in between.
Like 30 years?
Yeah.
Golly. And it's not like animation was not known about or not being... they were just out of the game.
No, I mean, yeah, I guess... I'm guessing that Pinocchio in outer space probably
soured them.
Yeah, may not have done well. I'm just going on a limb here.
I don't know.
We'd have to look that up. I may be incorrect. It may have been the best movie ever. I'm sure it holds up. With a character as stellar as Nerdle the Twirtle.
It has a 6.2 on IMDb. So
I just wonder how it did back then.
I don't know. Arnold Sting.
When you're taking on Astro,
the
giant whale,
the space whale.
Okay, but this is not
Fievel.
This is not Fievel. We'll come back to Nerdle the Twirtle and the Adventures of Pinocchio later. But we have this movie that it was done by Don Bluth, who people may know from things like Disney's Robin Hood, The Rescuers. He did The Secret of Nim.
Oh, I didn't know he did Secret of Nim.
Yes, he did The Secret of Nim. He did quite a few movies that you may know. I'll look him up. But this was a combination. This was Amblin Entertainment.
Okay.
Which was Steven Spielberg's animation studio.
Okay.
This was kind of the beginning of his studio, and so he collaborated with Bluth and Universal to make something, and it says based on Spielberg had asked Bluth to make me something pretty like you did in Nim, make it beautiful. Okay.
Well, that's pretty interesting. So looking back at this, I get such a Fiddler on the Roof kind of vibe from it with that, seems like, I guess, Fiddler on the Roof, that they're Russian Jews, right?
Yes, I believe so.
And you kind of like the dad and the mom vibe. It was very Fiddler on the Roof. And so I was like kind of curious if that had any inspiration in the article that I came across. Spielberg's involvement didn't in there. I mean, Fievel, American Tale is a cross between Gangs of New York and Fiddler on the Roof by the way of Art Spiegelman. Mouse. The film tells a story of the family. So I didn't realize how. I have to go back and watch the Gangs of New York, the film, and see kind of what the ties are there, just to get the vibe from it. But I got such a heavy vibe of Fiddler on the Roof from it. I enjoyed it. As a kid, I loved American Tale. I remember renting it from the store because I did not go to the movie theater very often, and watching it. And we recorded it, of course. Of course, we recorded it so we could watch it more than once. And I watched it a couple times, so it was good.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I have fond memories as a kid of this movie, even though it wasn't one of the big. I mean, it wasn't a big like Disney movie. I mean, Disney was really popular about that time, but it was a good movie. It was one that as a kid I truly enjoyed. I I really liked, a lot of the musical numbers. Like there are no cats in America. Do you remember that song?
Yeah,
Like there are
so the dad.
no cats in America, and the streets are filled with cheese. There are
You
no-
really do know this stuff.
buddy,
Man.
as strange as it may be, when I was a kid, I loved this movie. I don't know what it was about the talking mice versus the cats. Maybe it was because I was the youngest child in my family.
Uh-huh.
So it was me versus the older established brother and sister.
The established.
Yes. And I had to fight. But I enjoyed this story of this mouse that he gets swept overboard on the ship.
Oh yeah, that's what happens. The waves.
Yeah, and he
Okay, I
remember
was
he
trying to
gets,
remember.
somehow, I don't remember exactly how, he ends up in like a bottle. And he happens to float to New York.
Yeah,
Because that's where the storm directs him. He meets the seagull that kind of tells him about America.
okay.
But I mean, there's all these things that, I mean, and of course you have the incomparable Dom DeLuise, who was in many, many things, but he voices the cat
Oh yeah.
that he makes friends with. Remember what that cat was named?
No, I don't.
Tiger.
Oh yeah, tiger.
You want to know how I remember that?
We just watched something that said
We
tiger
did.
on it.
But actually, I knew that before because my dog was named Tiger.
A dog you liked or hated?
No, I like that dog.
You like that dog?
I was a
Okay.
kid when we had that dog.
Before you got wiser and learned to
Right.
hate animals.
Right. Before I learned that
They're
animals are truly out to get you. As we've talked,
We've discussed that in
go into, you know what, if you want to learn more about that, go back to some of our Micro Mini podcast or Micro Mini Lightning newscasts. It'll easily be explained. But I mean, there's so much about this movie. I mean, it wasn't what you call like a bunch of big names voicing these characters.
No. I mean, I don't know. You realized one of the names that I didn't know, right? What was it? No, it was on Fievel Goes West.
Oh yeah, we'll get to Fievel Goes West.
But
If you're gonna
trying
talk,
to-
if you're gonna talk American Tail, you have to. We'll get to Fievel Goes West here in a minute.
yeah.
But
No, I didn't know. I don't know any. I'm trying to actually find him again so I can kind of just take a glance at him and see if I recognize any of them. I don't. Philip Glazier looks familiar, but I don't know if I know him.
well, I
So-
mean, Dom DeLuise was pretty well known back
Yeah.
then. He voiced quite a few things actually
Oh, he has a very unique voice, and he plays the same voice and character every time he voices.
right.
I mean, he's kind of like that's all he is.
And Christopher Plummer as Henry, a pigeon of French descent who oversees construction of the Statue of Liberty. Christopher Plummer was also a pretty well known character. He's honestly been in quite a few things. I mean, not character, actor.
Yeah.
He's been in quite a few things. He was in some things that I knew about, watching like Westerns with my dad and, other things like that. I mean, there's a lot of these actors I know from watching movies with my father growing up. But, Christopher Plummer was a pretty well established actor at the time. I mean, he had been in things like The Man Who Would Be King. I mean, he was a well-known actor at the time. But I don't know anybody. I mean, I don't think there was anybody else that was any of any kind of
caliber. Note.
Yeah, big repute at the time. I may be incorrect, but from what I understand and what was said about this movie is that, I mean, the fact that everything was basically hand drawn. I mean, it was beautiful in that aspect of things. But I mean, I guess I know what did we see on Rooster Teeth, or not Rooster Teeth, on Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb? What were the rankings?
So on Rotten Tomatoes, the critics gave it a 70, and the audience gave it a 71%. And I was kind of looking through the critics things. There's 27 critic votes for it. Some as recent as 2008. So someone here's one. Here's a critic from February 21st, 2019. I love the music. The animation is beautiful throughout. That's the entire critics. It's a Rachel's Reviews, YouTube. How do you become a critic? We should see if we can get a critics thing for IMDb.
Buddy, we can become a critic. What did Roger Ebert say there?
Oh, did you see Roger?
Yeah, he's right there.
There he is. Roger Ebert. The movie, and his was from 2000. Of course, he's the most probably well known of these. All these.
He's passed away since then. But...
Well, this is from the grave. No, yeah. The movie has such vague ethnic grounds, however, that only a few children will understand or care that the mouse cuties. How do you say that? Moskowitz are Jewish, and few of those are likely to be entertained by such a tragic, gloomy story. So that's the thing. The story of the Moskowitz, sorry, it took me a while to figure out what that says, but is not something you see anymore. They are escaping Russia because of the Cossacks, right?
Yes.
They're leaving Russia because of that. And that's a pretty tragic, that's like a civil war has broken out, and they had a very violent Hanukkah. And that's why they're leaving to go to the land of America, where it's, the streets are paved with cheese and there are no cats. So, I mean, that's some pretty heavy background. I didn't understand that as a kid at all.
Oh, I didn't either. I thought it was just a story about a mouse trying to reunite with his family. But I mean, you go a lot deeper into it, especially as an adult. You realize, holy cow, this story honestly is kind of, while it has a happy ending, it's kind of dark in a way.
It is a dark story.
Because if you're following the history of it, because this is set in 1885, and as Eric pointed out, this has to do with the Cossacks and that sort of thing. But it's honestly kind of a family that's getting here to America, and they run into a lot of hard times. Because one of the things I never realized is that essentially Fievel, when he first gets here, when he's separated from his family, goes to work in a sweatshop.
Oh, is that what he does?
Yeah, and that's where he meets his friend who I don't remember the friend's name, Tony something, but he's the character that he helps him escape, because he's also working at the sweatshop.
Wow, that's pretty dark.
I mean, I can understand why some people give it the rating that it is, but I mean, this was supposed to be a children's movie, and it was honestly a lot deeper than that.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's one of those things where you just don't realize what you're watching as a kid, and it's when, I mean, they do it now today. You'll see shows, and you notice it now because you're older and you understand maybe politics or culture, and you'll see themes weaved into shows. And I mean, maybe just there was more of this when we were kids and just haven't realized it because we haven't went back and watched a lot.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, That's we have that. Well, we got not much time. Then we go to Fievel Goes West.
Before we move on, hang on. I want to read this. I didn't realize this. This was Steven Spielberg's first animated film.
Oh, really?
And he didn't know what all went into it. It said in 1985, he stated, "At this point, I'm enlightened, but I still can't believe it's so complicated." It was something that he learned that it said, nevertheless, this was his first, and it took some time for him to learn that adding a 2-minute scene would take dozens of people months of work because of all the hand drawing and the voice stuff.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, the voice stuff I didn't think would take too long, but yeah, all that hand drawing animation.
Well, I mean, I could see how that could be a thing, especially when you're hand drawing it, because you've got to get the voice acting to match up to the...
Yes.
And you'd probably have to take a few frames out of the mouth moving and that sort of thing, since it's basically like a flip book, or speed it up or
yeah, I don't know.
Whatever it takes. But I mean, it's incredible to think that Steven Spielberg, the prolific director, it's like this was his like shock at how hard this actually was. But like you said, all right, so we need to move on very quickly. And I mean, we don't need to talk about it very long, but American Tail, Fievel Goes West. What were you going to say, my friend? I'm sorry to interrupt.
It's such a divergence from the first one. The dark undertones and the music and the originality of maybe not the storyline, but just the way it's put together and the art. And you go to Fievel Goes West, which has a completely different, done by a different animation studio. Right. Well,
no, it was done by the same people, except Don Bluth had some differences, some creative differences with Steven Spielberg this time. So Spielberg turned to two different people. He turned to Phil Nibelink, a former Disney animator, and Simon Wells, the great-grandson of science fiction author H.G. Wells, to direct the project this time. And so that did change the tone and the animation.
Yeah, it's much a lighter feeling.
Well, the animation definitely is lighter.
It does have a great Blues Brothers song in it.
Yes, the version of Rawhide in that is taken from the Blues Brothers and not the old Rawhide show.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, honestly, I enjoyed, as a kid, one thing I didn't like about it, I will say, is I didn't like the animation change, because I even as a kid, I liked the consistency in my sequels.
Yeah, me too.
And the fact that it changed, I didn't like that. However, there is a very near and dear to my heart actor involved in this who voiced Wiley Burp, the sheriff of the town, and it was none other than James Stewart. And even as a kid, once again, watching those westerns with my father, and also watching A Wonderful Life, I was very familiar with James Stewart and a huge fan of James Stewart when 11-year-old Nick saw this one come out.
And what was this, Nick? Was this was his last?
Well, yeah, this was his last performance in a movie. He may have done some interviews on, I know we looked up his thing. He may have done some interviews for like some documentaries.
Yeah.
But this was his last performance in a movie before he died in 1997.
Man, there's those iconic people, and this was one for you.
Oh yeah. Well, he was an iconic actor.
Well, yeah. I mean, but very.
Yes.
I mean,
definitely.
Even iconic actors. I mean, not everyone relates to them and enjoys all their work, but yeah, you have a good. At least he ended in kind of the genre you liked as well, Western.
Right.
Doing the old Western thing, so that's good.
I mean, it was, honestly, it was still a fun movie for me. Also, being a fan of the Westerns, but it was different enough to where there was still something that irked me about it. And like we said, it was also a lighter movie and at points somewhat silly versus
Original.
The original was, it still had its sappy moments, but and silliness, but it never really lost that tone, in my opinion, of, hey, this is heavy. This is kind of a heavy topic.
Yeah. Why is it that when you go back and some of the best movies are those who have those kind of undertones that you don't understand at the time, but they permeate the movie and give it a depth that's beyond you, but you can appreciate to a point?
Well, because you realize that as a kid, you didn't recognize that, but
you might not recognize it, like knowing what's going on, but you know something's there.
Right.
Yeah.
But even as an adult, you realize, oh my goodness, there's a lot of history here. Because if you look into the Cossack, time period, there's a lot that went on. And I mean, representing it with a mouse and that sort of thing, I honestly, something where kids can.
I mean, if you did the Rescuers,
yeah,
that was another mouse duo.
Yeah, I mean, you have Mickey Mouse, and there was a lot of precedence for mice being something that kids could relate to.
Yeah, tell stories through.
Yeah, Tom and Jerry, that sort of thing. So, I mean, this was a brilliant way to do it, in my opinion. I haven't watched it recently, but I think if I went back and watched it, I would still find it to be a good movie.
I believe you're right, sir.
Well, buddy, as much as I would love to talk more about this, I will say there were 2 more movies that spawned out of this, and there was a very short-lived An American Tail series.
Huh.
But there was the American Tail, The Treasure of Manhattan Island. And then there was another one that was the American Tail. I'd have to find that sequel, but it was something about the night monster or something like that. And they used, up until it was shuttered, the company Amblin Entertainment used Fievel as kind of its
mascot.
Its mascot.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool.
So those are a final few little tidbits about the history of American Tail. You've got the Mystery of the Night Monster. That's the 4th sequel, but those sequels came out like years later, 1998 and 99, from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I've never seen those, nor did I know about them. And there was a video game on the PlayStation 2, only in Europe, in 2007, based on the Fievel, the Coming to America. There's 2007. Oh, and also there's an updated soundtrack list. 2019 expanded edition track list for the whole thing from 2019. That's this year.
Are they re-releasing the movie?
I have no idea.
Well, apparently, guess what, people? You can get on there and download on iTunes your new 2019 track list from An American Tail.
Yeah, that's insane.
I wonder why. I'll have to look that up. I wonder what's Fievel's escape, releasing the secret weapon. I do remember the secret weapon. That was kind of a big scene where they chased the cats. Well, buddy, we've run out of time. I would love to keep talking about this. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff with like alleged plagiarism and things like that. But my friend, as a podcaster, I like to think that our listeners are out there staring up at the same bright star that I'm looking at.
Are those stars your eyes, Nick?
No.
Oh.
Those stars are me, actually.
Oh, that's you.
Because as the star of the PUC podcast, it is very important that they look at me.
I agree.
Tell them where they can find me, Eric.
You can find Nick all over the internet, as he deserves. He is on Twitter at Pull Up a Chair Pod. What's the name of our Twitter account?
Pull Up a Chair Pod.
Pull Up a Chair Pod. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's yours, and you would know it, I assume. That you can go to our personal website, retrospectivepodcast.website. Why website?
Because we can.
Because we can.
And I'm a star.
And Nick's all about Nick. And you can find us on YouTube and Facebook. Just search for Pulpit Chair Podcast, and we're on every podcasting app around. And if you're not already listening to us somewhere, how did you know? How'd you know where to find us?
And you know what? Tell a friend.
Yeah, tell a friend.
Because
about Nick.
Here's the thing. As a big star like me, I invited a friend to come on, and Eric will be there too. And they can probably look at Eric and say, you know what? He needs friends too.
That's right. I humbly thank you.
You're welcome, my friend. You're welcome. Now, this is kind of one. Eric, thank you for making that reference last week. I mean, honestly, I don't know why this didn't come to me sooner, especially talking about the 80s. This was kind of a big movie because it was something outside of Disney. And I don't know. It was kind of a fun topic to talk about. I hope you enjoyed it, Eric.
I learned a lot. You know, this was a movie I watched several times, but never really delved into. And I feel like we barely scratched the surface of all the stuff that happened around it.
Well, and we'll probably, I mean, it's probably one of those things that we could go back and watch these and talk more about it, give kind of a review as an adult to see if it holds up type of thing.
Yeah.
We may do that at a later point, but it was a very good movie. And if you haven't seen it, go out and watch it. It's amazing to see a movie, because like Eric found earlier in an article, movies just aren't made like this anymore. They're a lot of computer generated, and this is a hand-drawn movie that was just beautiful for its time.
Yeah, definitely.
So get out there, watch American Tail, go back and tell us what you think, leave a comment down below. And you know what? Have a great day.
All right, bye.